So we covered last week Luke Campbell, of course, the mayor of the Hull and East Yorkshire City region, or Henker, as it's as it's dubbed. Like I say, in South Yorkshire, it's called Simca. So get ready used to be saying that a lot because it's a bit of a mouthful rather than the long version. So Henker is now, of course, in charge of, and we went over a blog post that was written by someone who's basically like saying, look, this guy's got no experience in local politics. He didn't show up to any of the hustings that, all the other candidates were attending. So he wasn't quizzed on anything. Big concerns that he was going to be nothing. And I still think this is the case, that he is going to be nothing more than a little trophy that Nigel Farage can just wheel out and have a good photo opportunity with. Meanwhile, of course, it'll be Farage and, of course, his little office from Reform HQ down in London that pulls Luke Campbell's strings. Now, there was the first the first, shall we say, proper mayoral meeting of Hinkia, and there was, I think quite rightly, he was quizzed on very, very, very much so on the conflict of the fact that that entire region has a booming green industry, that the green industry itself has been one of the only big growth areas in British the British economy. It is providing new manufacturing jobs. It can help create a lot more, cheap energy. Is the type of stuff we need. Most of these reform people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to sort of UK energy, why energy is so expensive as it is. They haven't got a clue. They just seem to think that it's this net zero stuff that's causing it. It's not at all. But anyway, that will get us massively off topic. But if one of these reform people, and I know there are some out there watching my videos, indeed, who are also YouTubers, if you want to talk to me, I am free. I will gladly have a conversation with you. I am not going to run away or anything like that. I will gladly have a conversation with you. However, before we get on to this, and of course, this meeting that happened, and of course, Luke Campbell being quizzed, of course, on this conflict over Reform's anti-net zero stance, please do remember to click on the like, share, and of course, the subscribe button down below. Of course, there is my Patreon page, there's the Buy Me a Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the YouTube membership, the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, 'tis Wednesday, so we will be doing a Pony Club video for all the Patreons and of course the Pony Clubbers. So join up today if you want to see that video. So let us crack on with this. So this is it. So this comes from Hull Live on the title of Luke Campbell quizzed on conflict between the region's green industry and Reform UK's anti-net zero stance. So the Hull and East Yorkshire Mayor Luke Campbell was quizzed on if the combined authority's green energy principles is now in conflict with his party's anti-net zero stance. And bear in mind, it very, very much is. Farage has said time and time again, all this stuff he wants rid of. If you've got Luke Campbell saying, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," how long before he pulls the plug, or to his day properly starts to pull the strings? Because he's not the only one. Andrea Jenkins also been quizzed in her first meeting about the fact that she's supportive of green industries in her, area now that she's in control of. But Reform stance is like, no, get rid of all that. What's going to start happening when Nigel starts to pull the strings? Methinks this type of comment might come back to haunt him in a couple of years, or maybe even a couple of months. Who knows? So, during, of course, the very first meeting of Henko, the executive board, the member of the public asked now this newly elected Reform UK mayor on a potential conflict. And of course, you can see all the advertising that they put on this website. Anyway, back to this. Saying Hull and East Yorkshire has, of course, a very rich green energy industry. So much so that the Henke's own very rich website states that one of its four principles is to deliver a sustainable future. The website, of course, goes on to state that through its now green energy generation and sustainable development, climate adaptation, and of course, resilience, a strategic approach now to harnessing our natural capital asset. However, just this week, Reform's own UK leader vowed to scrap its own net zero policies if his party wins, of course, the next general election. During, of course, the public question segment of the board, in which Campbell went back on now the combined authority bidding for government funding for renewable energy projects. So, D, why are you backing all that money you get from renewable energy projects when Farage is just going to come and say, snip, gone? just again, I think he's going to be a disaster as a regional mayor. I mean, this alone, when this conflict blows up, and someone will eventually, I'm sure, tell Farage what does he think to the fact that one of his regional mayors is standing up for all this. That's when the conflict of interest is that's when the conflict is going to start. And I think we know who's going to win. It's going to be Nigel at the end of the day. Luke Campbell will be told that you've got to take orders. This is what you've got to do. So, Mr. Edward Washer, of course, asked the mayor, saying, what criteria was used to decide whether or not to support businesses' proposals now affecting Hull and East Yorkshire with now the development of green energy in whatever form proposals, of course, might take? Again, very fair question. Business wants to develop green energy. Doesn't matter whether it's putting solar panels on its roof, whatever. Why? What's the criteria? How are you deciding whether or not to support those businesses? Let's see what Campbell had to say. Anyway, in response, Campbell thanked Mr. Washer for his question and said, quote, I've constantly supported the region in green energy for local businesses, creating local jobs. I will keep on that same track. Really? Why is your party saying the exact opposite? Just a question there. But anyway, he continued, I was brought on by the people of this region. I represent them. If I can help local jobs and help local businesses, that is what I'm here to do. Mr. Washer was offered the chance to ask the mayor a follow-up question and said, you've served as a candidate under the Reform UK party, and I'm just wondering whether you see any conflict between what you've just said and Reform's attitudes to green energy. Which, again, very, very true. That is a huge question. And I will say this now. Whenever, ever Farage says anything about net zero, anti-green energy, you should immediately bring up those comments to Campbell and see what he has to say on that matter. Because he ain't going to seems to be towing the party line on that. Or at least for the time being, shall we say, on that. All this advertising real estate. Anyway, Campbell, of course, went on to say, I've, of course, been very vocal on stating that I represent this region and I put them first over any party politics. I've always expressed that I put this region first over anything. Luke Campbell has zero experience when it comes to party politics. Methinks he might be finding out about party politics firsthand very, very quickly when that happens. Is there any comments on this? There's no. Do they have any comments? I would love to know what people have been saying in response to this. Unfortunately, not. There's not a comment section, which is a shame. which is a shame on that one. But there you go. So, yes, the first, of course, meeting happened. And of course, well, sooner or later, that conflict will come to a head. I guarantee you that is something that is going to pop up. It's going to be a problem for Campbell. It's probably going to be a problem for Farage, where he says one thing, Campbell says, "Oh no, I'm going to support that." Andrew Jenkins also saying the same thing as Luke Campbell. I wonder if they're going to start changing their stance on net zero or what they mean by net zero, because I've seen very recently that they talked more about, shall we say, cutting the cost of, or at least more focusing on the fact of green energy, electric vehicles. That's what they are now meaning when they mean this net zero stuff. But if you listen to what Tice, Farage, and Yusuf have said in the past, they mean everything from solar farms, wind farms, you name it, they want to get rid of it. So let me know what you think about all this, because I think this will be a comment that comes back to haunt, shall we say, Mr. Campbell on this regard, because, yeah, that questioner was right. There is a big conflict between what his party has said about this and what his stance is on that. So what's going to happen there when they clash over that? But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.